Hello everyone, I'm back today with another journal that I wanted to share with you. It's larger, the 9.5 by 6.5, and it has the fabric cover like I've been making. Very similar. This one has 3 signatures in the spine, and it has over 120 pages. Let's see. This is just a piece of, what's it called? Muslin, that it's not attached. I just tied it around the spine. Around the cover, just to kind of hold it closed a little more. It does pretty good on its own, but just, and plus as you stuff it, it's nice to have something to hold it closed. The cover is just patchwork of lots of different colors of blue patterned fabric and different types of fabric. Some is vintage, this I know for sure, and this, I believe this one is, some of it is newer like that one. Probably that one. I'm not sure. Some of these I got at a thrift store in a pack. They were pre-cut for quilting, and yeah, I grabbed them up and wanted to do a patchwork. I'm not a quilter, so I didn't make it look all quilted. I just did patchwork. On the cover I have made it's like a brooch. It could be made into a brooch. It is just safety pinned on to the cover. It is loose. It has some crochet trim here, which I know is vintage. A lot of these pieces are, but not everything is. This is vintage yarn that I made crochet to flower from some vintage buttons. I'll just get a closer look for you. Lots of different laces and a little leaf here, some blue. It's like a navy blue and white trim, some pale blue here, and I pinned with the garment pin a charm that says wisdom. Has some little blue flowers over here. I did stitch along the crocheted doily section that I cut just so that it doesn't fray a lot and come apart, because you don't want to ruin it. That is the base for the collage here. It's like a little collage. These are some truly vintage buttons that I stitched on. Let's see. The edges are left rough. I like the frayed edges. You guys know how I do. So we'll just dive right in. The interior of the cover is a vintage, it's table linen, excuse me, that is embroidered. It is hand embroidered. It is vintage. It is aged, so it's not perfect. It has some snags, and it goes clear through to the back, and you can see the beautiful floral design that was embroidered. This is a vintage doily that I have put in here. The pages are coffee dyed, but very lightly, because I like the bright white. I didn't want everything to look dingy, because these are vintage and they're not super dingy. And these are also vintage table linens. This one and this one were like dresser toppers or table runners. This is vintage wallpaper that I made a pocket here with some coffee dyed paper. Just put some journaling cards in here, which I sewed around. And of course I had to, since it's patchwork journal, had to use Johanna's quilted paper. I didn't use any fabric in mine, but I did wallpaper and pattern paper, and made a little quilted card which you could make a tuck spot out of. You could put a picture on it, what have you. There's some stamping. This one says, most beautiful things are seen with the eyes, are not seen with the eyes but felt with the heart. Sorry, got some tabs. This journal started out being just a blue and white color scheme journal, but it had a mind of its own, so it created a theme for me, which was memory. I don't know how to say it. I know how it makes me feel. It reminds me of my grandmother, I guess you could say. Well, all of my grandmothers, really, because they did sew. One of my grandmothers made a bunch of her own clothes. I don't know that she quilted necessarily, but she definitely was a seamstress in making clothes. So this has a lot of just things that would make you think of your grandmother. It may be a book that you could use for memories about your grandmother or your mother even. This is just patchwork quilt. I call them quilted pages of different pattern papers. I did a stamp of a sewing machine down here. Some fabric sewn on the edge. This is a page from an Ideals magazine. This one was not terribly old. It was from the 80s. Got some plaid paper over here. This was cut from a piece of fabric, which you'll see another larger piece that was sheer, and then I stitched around it, all the way around. You can see the stitching here. Little stamp. This is coffee dyed. It has a great texture, and it's what is it? Packing paper, like newsprint type thing. This flips open. This is a tuck with just some extra writing paper in it. Vintage, or I don't know if it's terribly vintage, but ledger paper. Oh, I'm getting all tongue-tied and can't talk. And this is what I was talking about as far as the theme. It says how Grandma danced. This was a vintage page, so because I put it in the center, I reinforced it with just some plain old masking tape, just because the aged paper was splitting when I went to sew it in. This is a poem about a grandmother while she was young, remembering that, you know, she once lived a full life and was young at one time. A bird stamp. Lots of fabric tabs. This is just the other side of that image about old-fashioned things, which is earlier in the book. Some fabric sewn on the edge, just a journaling card that I stamped Remember. Some more of that wallpaper to make a pocket. Some stamping here with thread, a spool, and scissors. Got another, the other side of that quilted page. The pocket with another grandmother sewing, or not sewing, but cutting some quilting pieces. She's working on a quilt here. This was also from an Ideals magazine that was from the 50s. Oh, that got wrinkled. I'm sorry. Just a journaling spot there. Some stamping. This was the scalloped edge of one of the dresser toppers, but I really liked, I didn't want to just get rid of the scalloped edge. It's really pretty. The other side of that large pocket with another quilted card and just a journaling tag with some birds on it. The other side of the doily. And this pocket has just some buttons and fabric sewn on. This is not vintage fabric, but it has like the text, the handwriting on it, and some papers just collaged on. In this pocket is a collaged journaling card that has some lace and a bluebird on it, or a blue jay, I guess. Anyways, a large tag here, just some coffee dyed paper, a vintage, it's like a pamphlet, it has some interesting, I liked how it says, Welcome Back Bluebird. My Mother's Quilt, a poem about a quilt. Gentle Thoughts of You, stamped up here. Some more of that lace. An image from a book page of some spool and button and such. This is another poem with some sewing pattern paper. Just collaged on here with some writing space on the back. This was a greeting card that I took apart. Oh, it does flip up. It has a bouquet and some space for journaling. And it also makes a pocket, which I put this little tag in. It has a flip of some lace, and this is a vintage page from a crochet book from the 1950s with a lady here who it looks like she's doing some lace work or crochet. And this is that fabric piece that I was telling you I cut the flowers from. And there's just a large piece there. Some more from that crochet book. The other side of that large piece of fabric. A stamp. Ruffled paper. This is just a little, like a notepad that I made with some vintage wallpaper. And this little tuck spot. This is also a tuck spot here. Another one of those flowers. Some fabric. The other side of that with from the crochet book on there. Oh, you know what I'm trying to say. Doily. Another large tag for journaling and some fabric. This is a measuring tape. It's fabric measuring tape and some more of that crochet book page. Ledger paper from the Ideals magazine, backed with coffee dyed paper. Some more stamping, ruffle sewn paper, a large applique which has been sewn on to this page, a pocket here with just some collaged from the crochet book. You can see it was a pattern, and just a collage of papers here and some journaling spot on the back of that. Another one of those pamphlet pages, another quilted page. This is a bird which I found in my stash. I drew it just in pencil a long time ago, so I went around it with some blue inked pen and collaged it on here with some of that crochet doily and papers. And it is sewn all the way around. I like how it gives the puffy kind of feel because of the crochet behind it. Another one of those flowers. Here's a stamp. It didn't come out perfect, but you can still read it. It says, "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all." An Emily Dickinson quote. Another quilted page. I like how this has poems and sayings and quotes on it, and this one is repeating pattern, which I thought was good for quilting. Some more over here. It's that vintage pamphlet. This is a book page from an antiques book from the 60s that I just folded up, made a pocket, and put a vintage plain card. It's got woolly lamb there. Here it says, "You remain in my heart and thoughts." That was from a card, greeting card. Just some gingham pattern paper here, also from a card, and some lace sewn on this envelope, and inside is another one of the book pages from the crochet book and some sewing pattern instructions collaged on there and gessoed. I'm trying to hurry. I hope you don't mind, but my phone is about to die. Some lace sewn on here, a little stamp, some more of that crochet book, the Ideals book. This is a songbook from, actually I don't know the year, it is very old. Says, "Oh Mother, how we miss you." It was radio favorites from long ago. This is modern. It's not vintage. A stamp of just a blue hummingbird, and you can tell it's been used, so it's got the stamp on it. I don't know what that's called. I got a paper clip up here. This is a little eyelet lace flip. And here is a wallpaper envelope with some lace and rickrack. This is a paper button that I use Gilder's wax on. And in here is just a bunch more, and I'll add more to it actually. Fun little bits and pieces that you can add to your journal as you go. So there are those. And there is this journal. I don't have a name for it yet. It'll probably be in the title of the video though. And it will be listed in my Etsy today by the time this video is up. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think. Bye, y'all.